Hello, guys. Well, it's David Vos here, and it's getting pretty late. I did not get a video up today, but it's still light a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and do this video, but it takes a little bit of time to load it and so forth. I don't know if it'll be up tonight, but maybe by tomorrow morning, maybe tonight. But guys, had a lot of stuff to do. Been really busy and a lot of crazy things going on, and I didn't get a video done yesterday at all. Didn't really have time to just sit down and talk with you guys. And like, always, I have no idea what we should talk about. There's just so many amazing things that I'm thinking about and doing. I'm really limited in doing a lot of the stuff that I want to do because I don't have any funds to do it. I went to Lowe's, I keep saying that. We don't have a Lowe's, we have a Home Depot. Now, I always used to go to Lowe's. I never usually went to Home Depot, but here, and man, oh man, it's a big place, big parking lot, like a big old golf course or whatever, like the regular big, huge size Home Depot. But it's like I can literally tell that they're not selling certain things. There's not any variety like there used to be. I mean, when it comes to nails or screws or whatever, they do have some new things that we didn't have when I was young. And that sometimes people think, whoa, more variety. But what it's doing is they may be improving. It may not even be improvement. It may just be a cheaper way for them to do it. May even be a big hassle for us to change. But so things are only changing now to their benefit, not for our benefit. I mean, things get cheaper, they break quicker. They're just trying to sell you stuff. But so there's that problem I noticed, but it's not just that. I mean, there's something else going on. I noticed it, of course, back in the days when, let's say right around the time that Trump went out of office and we had to do all that gymnastics, and people were getting shadow banned and people, all this stuff, right? We don't even want to spell the word. We forgot how to spell. But, all this stuff maybe lasts 3 or 4 years. And during that time, it was obvious that things happened. I mean, like, it wasn't like just me that seen it, the entire world. But it's just that most of the world didn't interpret it as, oh no, this is a real takeover. This is one of their final spasms. They're going to take over. They're going to, people couldn't even imagine the idea that maybe all of us would just expire for some reason. They would never ever dream that somehow the pharma company could be so inclined that it would be only the bottom line of their dollar that they'd be worried about. And they really wouldn't care, even if lots of people died, because, they could, maybe the businesses control the propaganda. You think? Well, do you know what the definition of Nazism is? Yeah, the NAZ. Do you know what the definition of that? Well, what they were was fascists. Okay, that's what we call them. Nowadays, people don't even know what that is. Some people think it's a good thing. Oh yeah, I'm up for it. Well, I mean, really, we've got to the point where we don't know if up is down or down is left or right, or we're just about done for. But after World War II, the world pretended with all their little might that everybody must hate the NAZs. I think that served a couple of purposes. You get the hound off the scent. If you don't want the hound to chase you, make friends with a hound or something, But if they just told people that all the real evil people in the world that now have just taken over the world, we won't claim to be them, will claim that they are the bad guys, and no one will ever know who those bad guys are because you're not allowed to talk about them. And after all, they probably just all disappeared. Oh, wait a minute. I think we've heard about Project Paperclip, where they brought them all over here. And they began to take positions of power, the shadow government. That's the shadow government. The taxpayers funded the CIA, as the CIA sent spies and assassins in. Literally. Yes, literally assassins. Like, some guy with a rifle in a briefcase sitting up on the corner. You're done. Right? If you're on the watch list, if you're not protected by the Lord anyway, let's put it that way, they have no authority over Christians who really know the Lord and pray every day in the name of Jesus. Jesus promised he would always protect us, always. And nothing will ever happen to us unless the Lord wills it, or it is something that we allow into our life because we have not had any, the faith that we needed to ask for whatever we wish, so that whatever we ask for shall be given. But we don't have the faith to ask. And sometimes few people have the faith to ask, but then it's like, oh, just kidding, I ain't worthy of that, Lord. Well, then you didn't believe, because that's the point. You got to believe that you're worthy by virtue of Jesus. That no man is worthy on him, by his works. It's filthy rags, and you've got to stop trying to earn it, because Jesus didn't like. That was the one thing Jesus didn't like, is a hypocrite trying to, put a square peg in a round hole, trying to do something over and over again, looking for a different result. Human beings have never been able to keep the law. The Bible, the Lord himself says and states divinely that all sin, not all have sinned. I'm sorry, that word have is not even in there. But all are sinners, all sin, that's all we are, is sin. When we're talking about, well, now it doesn't say all are defined as sin. Excuse me, that's not what I meant. But we all are sinning continuously in the present moment. Okay, does that mean that we're sinners? No, we're the spiritual being, the inner powerful being that is real, that is life within us. But it's this outer man that's wasting away from day into day, Paul talked about. That's the lower ego that we call the I. It's not even the real I. It's not even who you are. Some false concept of who you are. It's a being who feels and doubts. It's not even aware of who they are. What are you? You're the person who can shine. You could believe, you could create with your mind. And since you don't know that, and yet it's true, you are still creating with your mind. Out of all of your fears, and out of your hate, and out of your ignorance. If you would just wake up and learn the truth, it would set you free, because Jesus said the truth will set you free. So that's always to be kept in mind. Understand, everything I say is just the way things are, because there's always a number of people that haven't graduated yet from this class. And so therefore, they're not going to be able to cut that board perfectly with the miter saw. They may have to do it over. They're going to learn to become a carpenter. They're just starting, right? They're going to be in this class for a year or two. Then they're going to get a test, and then they're going to get a final test, right? And if they apply it, and they apply themselves, and they work hard, and they listen, they'll pass. You don't expect somebody to be passed that didn't pass the class, because you got to know what you're doing. That's the whole point of taking the test. Well, what we're doing is and you know what, that's just a parable. It's not really a test. And it's not like, oh, the Lord deity above is sitting up there with a pencil behind his ear saying, now, did you pass the test, young man? Do you know what 2 and 2 is? No, he's not he doesn't demand that we know anything. Okay, because what we're talking about is getting up to the top of the mountain. If you want to get to the top of the mountain, you must keep walking. And it's effort. But it's not a bad thing. Because there wouldn't be any joy of getting to the top if we didn't succeed, if we didn't if we didn't overcome. That's what we want. Look at little children. They jump up and they run outside and they play. Why? Why are they doing it? Nobody told them to, but they want to. Okay, well, that's a lot of work running around doing somersaults and jumping up and down. Why don't you just settle down there? You're just taking up all that energy. They don't care. They're here to expend energy. That's what makes them happy. And they're just playing. And they know it's just a game. It's not real. That's why they're happy. But we get so involved in this world that we feel like, well, if everything falls apart, I'll fall apart. We can't let that happen. It's like we're so stressed out and we're so angry and things are falling apart around us. Because we think, number one, that we're not in control. And therefore our anxiety and our lust, because that's probably why we are trying to bite off more than we can chew. And we're upset because we couldn't hang on to all of it, right? Because we don't know balance. We don't know any of this. But, you see, we know this stuff. So we're okay. But if you didn't know, you'd be a hypocrite. And so there are people who do know something. Now, they don't know very much. I'm not saying they know a spit in a bucket, okay, compared to what's known. The infinite universe. They're really stupid, really. But they have a little more knowledge than the average folk. And how many people have this knowledge? Probably not too many. I believe there's 144,000 people on the earth that knows some of this, some of it, or most of it. At least they're in on it. But the rest of them don't know anything. And they're the government that's running this thing. It's a corporation. It's fascism. That's exactly what fascism says. Thomas Jefferson warned that our country would be taken over by corporations if we didn't be careful. Very easily and quickly. And that's exactly what's happened. So, who are they? Well, it was accomplished by Project Paperclip. A project that was a German practice that they carried out before World War I. They started these projects, and they would call some of them operations. Now, yeah, somebody will say, we do that in America. Well, it's not just a German thing. No, we've only done that since World War II. Once they came over here, they continued the projects and the operations. We didn't win the war. Neither did Germany. Neither did Russia. Nobody won the war. It was just these elite playing us like checkers. And they had to lose a knight to get to the queen. So they lost a few things and a few people. But they set up their headquarters, and there are little ley lines that they draw out to match the stars. And they really believe it's like magic. They don't know what they're doing. They don't really know what they're doing, except that they know that they hate that knowledge. And because Jesus is coming to take them out. And, they say that there's two different UFOs. There are those ships that we have. They're very advanced. And that, I will tell you for a fact, is true. They're right about that. We do have very advanced technology. And there aren't too many people that know anything about that technology or how to do it. They don't, I'll just give you the basis for it. Energy is not just electricity, and it's not just music. It's not even just form, physical form. It's everything. And it's called energy. And when if we ever understand that we're infinite, that we don't need anything, just like we were talking about, that we have everything already, that the I am, the truth, the way, the life means you are, then you'll understand that the infinite can never die, and that you are, and if you are, then you exist. And if you exist, then you must have always existed, because existence can never die. Existence couldn't be existence if it was non-existence. You see, this time and space is just a concept. Everything you've seen, everything you touch, everything you smell has a soul, has an expression, as a source. You know, it has the mind, the being. Everything is being. And what being is thinking and imagining. And everything comes from being, so everything is being. I mean, even to the lowest material substance, which is just all of that stuff, that eternal, infinite stuff, what we call energy, I think, in English. What I call love, what the Bible calls love. Mind. It's infinite. It takes up no space. On the end of a pinhead, there's enough power to blow the universe up. Whoa, that is the universe. Everything in the universe is on the end of a pinhead. Right? If you are aware of it all at the same time. If you had that fullness, that is the divine, the fullness of the divine being. But you chop it up, and there's the pleroma. There's the lights and these beautiful colors, these 7 colors in the rainbow, these 7 notes in music. They all come from the one, the light, the white, the pure, the real, the reality. And then light warps and brings it into form. There's nothing there to measure. We're just observing. Don't worry about how big it is. Just watch it. It's beautiful. But anyway, that infinite is everywhere. It's not just one place. You don't have to go over here, over there. Some people think that when they make these, they put a cathode and an anoid into the ground, and you can get almost a volt out of that. I think you probably could get a volt out of it. You had a real good acidic base. Maybe, got some good ground and made sure you got good contact. You've got to have the cathode pointing north, because of the energy that's flowing in the earth itself has a positive and negative pole. So you need to go towards the north. And the anoid doesn't, the negative doesn't have to be more than an inch high. You're not, because you see, let's say you're using a copper pole and an aluminum pole, and they're dissimilar metals, and you pop them in the ground with a hammer or something, and you get the voltage. You put the negative on the aluminum and the positive wire on the copper, and you'll read about 0.8 of a volt. If you pour some water around the base, you might get better ground, and you'll get more. Well, the electricity is coming out of the air, not the ground. The air has the static electricity because it's the outer sphere of the earth. And it's the outer that has all this power. It's the infinite. For us, it looks like it's wider angle, like it's more, there's more space. Well, it's just that it's a representation. We're in a holographic world, and the base, though it feels like it should be the biggest part, is really the smallest. It's just the center where everything starts, and but it's not the real center. It's like a figure 8, see? Because the real center of the universe is the spirit. So it would be heaven. Well, if we're a round globe and you go up, you're going out, you're not going in. So it's all backwards. How come? Because it's kind of like we living inside the earth, really. And the stars, like some of the German scientists thought, it's like a Swiss cheese. And the stars weren't really solid. They were openings or portals into a vast universe. So we're in the middle looking out through these little holes. How could that be? Well, because the source is infinite. So that we symbolize that by big. So in our mind, we see it wide and open. But there is no time and space. Okay? It's wide and open because it's everything. It's all the space. But that's a symbol, because what that space is in the pinhead. There's no time and space. There's no space. It's all in one spot. It's in you. You're the being, the source. And so, as your being, you are infinite. You have gazillions of volts. It's an endless ocean. You can keep dipping water out of it forever. It never will cease. Okay? So, but when you get a resistor on the end of that power, like putting your thumb over a hose of water and you stop the flow, then you get, because of resistance, you get this violence, you get this force, and the water shoots way out there. The water was the same, the volume of water. The pressure changed due to a resistance. So they have resistors and capacitors. Capacitors are where you cut the line or the flow, and it goes from two metal plates in between, and it has to fill up that space or charge. And when it gets charged, then it wants to come out the other side. But you put a diode to make sure that it goes only one way, not out and back in again. It would be a bottomless pit. You've got to guide it. It's this energy that must be guided in order to get more. It's infinite. You got to have a bucket to get the water. If you got a bigger bucket, you get more water. That's all. So when we put pressure on the water, boom, now we've got more force. We've got physical. It's the same stuff. Nothing's changed. The hardest substance, uranium, is the same stuff as light, but it's just slowed down. You've got resistance now. And so it turns into a different form. It transforms. And you take the copper wire and go round and round and round and round, and every time you transform it. Transformers. And so therefore, when one mommy and daddy come together, they can create another person exactly the same. That's all now completely a microcosm of the macrocosm, an exact likeness, a total exact image with the same potential, the same divine being. It's just another another pot of the same water from the same ocean. And all of those waters are connected. All of those light rays are connected to the one, the rays are all connected to the central sun. We have differences only because we're each pieces of the whole. But we also have connection to the other piece. That's called making love. That's knowing, lifting the veil of your wife and having the orgasm. And when you do that, bam, you make babies. Yeah, you create more volts. Now you got 2 volts, 3, 4, 5. Bam, you keep going. At 100 feet above the ground, there's 100 volts. Wow. Huh. What did I say, 100 feet? No, excuse me. Actually, 1 meter. They measure volts in meters, voltmeter, because every meter is another volt. Right about that. It varies with the pressure and the temperatures and so forth. But if it's really hot, then it's going to be higher. If it's colder, it's going to be hugging the earth more. But that first band or layer, they have it at 1 meter, and that's 100 volts. Well, but the problem is that 1 volt that hugs the ground, it hugs everything material. So it hugs the contour of the earth. So if you have a wire in your hand and you're standing on the earth, that 1 volt is going to go, and the wave is going to go over you, over your body, and around everything, even that wire. So the end of your wire, even if it's 6 feet in the air, is still 1 volt. It's like an insulator around everything. That 1 volt. It hugs the contour of every living physical thing. So you really can't, theoretically, you can't stick a wire hundreds of feet in the air and get that power out of the air. It's up there. You see the voltage. You see the thunder. Kabam! This is power up there. But if you stick a wire up there, then that 1 volt is going to go toward all the way on the outside of that wire, all the way to the top and back down. It's insulated from that 100. No matter how high you put that wire, it's going to have 1 volt at the surface of the wire. But if you've got a tower way up there with a point, then when you're stretching that wavelength that high, you're making those layers thinner. So as it goes over the apex of the wire, there's a very small space between the point of that wire and the hundreds of volts. So the higher you go, you get closer and closer to a much higher voltage. And then all you have to do is get a cathode or a dissimilar metal or a vacuum to pull, like the antenna really is what that is, to pull it out of the sky. So I'm actually going to be doing some experiments. I can't promise I'm going to do them right away because I got to go buy metals and copper. I got to order a magnesium rod because I can't get one without ordering it, special order, because they just don't. Yeah. So it's difficult and it costs a lot of money for all this stuff. So it's going to take me a little while, but I am going to be building a pyramid. I'm going to make a 10-foot pyramid in front of the dome. I'm going to make a huge coil of copper going up a pole. We're going to use this for growing plants and some experiments like that. And over time, we'll let you in on some of that. But, I've got to do the best I can. I'm going to probably have to try and find wire laying around and stuff like that to come up with, the materials I need to do these experiments. But I'll show you. I'll let you guys in on what's going on. And you'll see we're going to find some very interesting things. But if you go up another meter, that's like less than 6 feet, you're going to have 200 volts. Well, you can run a house on 110. You can pretty much run anything on 110. But if you want 240, that's fine too. It's not very difficult. It's right there in the air. Why above you? Why not below? It's everywhere. Because in this part of the universe that we're living in, the light, the infinite, is something. It's no physicality. It's within us, right? It's this outer part that's all being slowed down. There's a resistance. It's your ignorance. It's your concept of it. You can't see the whole thing. So you're slowing it down and your mind is forming these idiotic dreams, these thoughts that you hold dear. And, you don't have to let go of them. They mean a lot to you. Well, that's gravity and you can't let go. That's what gravity is. That's why it's so strong. It comes from the will. And you have a personality that you get to keep. It is yours. You're not going to ever lose it. Your being. But until you understand to let go and to be calm and to let your woman free, then you really have love. But if you try to control her and force her, put her under law, she's probably not going to love you. And you may make her act like it. You may make her love you physically, but that's not really love, is it? She doesn't really love you, and she's not going to make you feel loved. See? So these people came over. They had a great deal of knowledge that they got from Satan. I've told you guys the whole story. They've been doing this for years and years and years. Why do we only go back to John Dee and Edward Kelly? Because before that, they lost. They burned all the books. They don't know it anymore. They forgot, right? And not that many people were so evil they'd go to Satan and find, see what Satan knew about it. Most people, were Christians, and anybody who was a devil worshiper or consulting Satan was probably crucified anyway. But and the world had never, and most of those guys were atheists. They didn't believe any of that. But at some point, a wicked, evil cult began to fester amongst the people, and they infiltrated the men of love. Jesus created the office of the overseer and the elder, and he chose the 72 also. That's the Sanhedrin. And Jesus talked about making a kingdom and taking the keys of the kingdom from them who had the keys at that time, and it was headquartered in Jerusalem. And he took it away, and he says, your house is left unto you desolate, and it was destroyed, and it was given to a people producing its fruit. And they literally went and made roads and buildings and libraries and loved people. And and they were being haunted down by the devil on their little backside, like hound dogs on their tail. And Inquisition after Inquisition took hundreds of years. I mean, we're talking about the Inquisition is like 1100 AD, right? Christianity was, couldn't be destroyed physically utterly until you deceive their minds. So 325, that's 325 years. They invented some doctrines and made a canon and forbade and made everything anathema and made paper bulls, and they threatened. Nothing happened for a while, and so then they had to really crack down. They'd send in the Inquisitor. Now let's see. Are you a devil worshiper? I see you have a wart on your nose, then you must be. And I see you have pigs, so therefore you're a demon worshiper. Well, these were barbarians. Julius Caesar tried telling us about these people. He says, these Swedish people, they come in, these Vikings, and they're ruthless. They're following the Old Testament. Genocide. They don't care. They believe in it. They're going to colonize the world. But they first had to take over the church and bring in their religion, which was Dagon, the fish hat. And so in 395, they burned down the library. And that means they literally either burned all the information other than what was chiseled in the stone walls of the pyramids and the cuneiform and the emerald tablet in Noctiglan in Mexico, or China or India or wherever these records were. But today we don't have those records visible, because if they were visible, someone would burn them, kill them, destroy them, or misinterpret them. So they probably didn't get lost. I don't think Jesus would have let that happen. I do know reports that when Heliopolis was destroyed and leveled by Alexander the Great, the priests had underground chambers where they, while they were burning the walls, took all the most precious scrolls and manuscripts down through the catacombs. Early Christians worshipped in the catacombs. Well, what does that mean? There was a temple. It had been there. It's under the pyramids. And it went from Rome all the way down to Egypt. Early Rome, Julius Caesar ruled, from like Alexandria, which is where Heliopolis was restored and rebuilt after they destroyed Heliopolis. But the books, they had a few. They didn't have much left. Some stories that they didn't understand, so Ovid took a little turn at that to try and figure out, write some more poetry. We don't know if he knew what he was talking about. You can't really trust anybody after about 300 or 400 AD. I think Ptolemy came along, tried to restore some of that, and he couldn't do it. With just his memory, he couldn't do it. And then by the time they figured out they didn't have the knowledge anymore, people like, Copernicus and Newton were desperate to try and figure it out. They were smart. They invented their own, they reinvented calculus, geometry, stuff like that. And they were trying to understand, and they had pieces of these books and snippets, and they tried to put it together. It was like a puzzle you couldn't put together. That's why Sir Isaac Newton was trying to translate the emerald tablets. But the books had all been burned. And anybody who had love, who hadn't yet been murdered, like Elijah and the 7,000 didn't bend the knee to Baal, well, they restored the widow's son, the priesthood. However, it was always short-lived, because the widow's son was always crucified again, and then the story just, the travesty continues, the drama. And the devil was after the woman to devour her child. And the devourer spewed water out of its mouth. But the earth came to the woman's help. And the woman went to America. And Lady Liberty stands on the shores and says, "Bring me your tired and you're hungry. We're going to give you liberty and justice for all." Well, we didn't get to have that long, but what we did get to keep has preserved what little bit of liberty we have in the universe, in the world. That's the only thread that stands between us and these evil people who want to destroy us. They have to destroy the Constitution before they can. And when they do that, it will be like poking the apple of the Lord's eye. So it'll be the end for them. Remember, the saints win, not them. But right now, these ignorant fools do have a lot more knowledge than we do, and they can make ships. And they were experimenting in World War II. That's why they have wars. The real biggest reason is that they can rob and pillage, murder who they want legally, which there's always a bunch of people they want to get rid of. The real JUDAH's tribe, they mostly tried anybody who thought they were or believed they were of that. If they found out these individuals were these people, they would murder them. Just as if they found any true Christians, they would murder them. But, we think of the Inquisition just after Christianity, but they were really after Christianity. I mean, they left a lot of Christians. They left the Lutherans alone and the Calvinists and that stuff. They made them, the Catholics, they're Christians, right? They were the ones doing the killing. But it wasn't Christians they were after. It was true Christians, true knowers. And so it was almost like a people. It was the sons and daughters and the knights. And so they infiltrated it. And they got control of the bank. And they got control of everything. And so when they brought it over here, they took over. And they run every country. Lock, stock, and barrel. We have no way to get out of their grasp. The only way, because they have our children's minds. They literally have our children's minds in their hand. But remember, the Lord knows how to succor those, or lure, bring them along, the ones whom he loves. And guess what? He loves everyone. The Bible says he loves everyone. What kind of a deity? Jesus said. If you ask for bread, you're wandering around in the desert for 40 frickin' years and he won't even give you bread. I have compassion for these people. Bring me the lame and the crippled and the weak and the deaf, the blind, and I will give them life. Well, that's not what Yahweh said. Yahweh says, I don't want anyone lame or crippled or deaf to come into the tent with the rest of the children. If you've got any defect, you can't be a priest or know me. You can't come into my presence. Right? You're filthy. You can't even have a meal with such a one. And there's people like Jehovah's Witnesses and a lot of modern Protestants that have this mind. They've apostated. But these elite individuals, they don't know anything spiritual. They had no idea what the occult meant. They just infiltrated it. They probably learned what they could, but they never learned much, because by the time they really tried to learn, they didn't even know what they were doing. They murdered all these people. They were gone. They didn't nobody to ask. All the books were burned, right? At first, the devil just wanted to get rid of it, because we were going to know everything. We were going to become like the divine being. We were going to have peace. He couldn't have hidden anything from us. Nothing would have been out of our power. We could have, like it says in Genesis, there was nothing they could not do. So Yahweh confused their language, stopped it short, dead. They're not going to be having knowledge. He cast them out of the garden. And in his wrath, he drove them out. He says, in his wrath, he said, you will not enter into my rest. And he won't pardon their sins, not to the third and the fourth generation. And he says, anybody who touches the mountain, he is to be stoned. Anybody comes up to the presence of the Lord, stone him. But Jesus said, come all ye. The blind, the lame, the sick, the thirsty, and I'll give you drink. I love you. So these people don't know that. They don't understand that, and they don't really believe that's a real story. They don't really believe in the Lord. They don't have any clue. Okay? So don't think they're smarter than us or anything like that. It's like some, when you were in 5th grade and you had some scientist or shop teacher and you thought he was real smart, pencil behind his ear. He's dumb as rocks. They go to school to learn to do one thing, to be a monkey and to repeat everything you're told. So a doctor doesn't even know that he's killing people. He's just handing out these little free things called drugs that he just assumes, I guess after he finds out that 90% of them aren't getting any better on these drugs, or 100%, and most of these drugs have a lot of side effects, and nobody ever gets cured of anything, you think they'd wake up. But no, they continue to do it like monkeys. They don't know any better. They're being strung along. They're mentally mind controlled by pleasure, like the little rat with the little red cord, the little neuralink in his brain attached to his pleasure center and there's a little red button, and he pushes the button. He keeps pushing the button until he dies. You can't, unless you're aware that you're being controlled. If you're in a hologram, you don't know it. You're going to be in this illusion. You're going to believe it. You got to wake up. This is why we have to go and tell the good news. The problem is when you tell people the good news, they don't want to listen because they're in blindness. A lot of times Jesus said, go give sight to the blind. That's what he meant. It's important that we heal the physically blind, but you can't heal anyone. You cannot heal a blind man, physically blind, unless you heal them spiritually, unless you open their eyes, because they got to have faith. When Jesus went to places where they knew him, he says, these people know me. A prophet's never welcomed in their own territory. And he couldn't do any miracles there because they had no faith. See, Christ can do the miracle at any moment, at any time. Not only for them, but for you. But you got to believe. Your faith is important too. It's a bipartisanship. Jesus is ready and willing. He don't need faith. He's got it. He knows. But you got to know. You got to at least believe. One size of a mustard seed amount of faith is all you need to grow a big tree like a mustard tree. Becomes bigger than all the other trees. And then where the birds take refuge in the branches. It becomes a habitat for all to enjoy and live and eat and survive and so they don't know that, but what they do know that we don't know, like your science teacher, is a little bit of trigonometry and a little, they have a vague idea of calculus. They don't really know what it's for because they've been told all kinds of theories, and since they have been mesmerized to believe, you can't possibly believe in being. There is no being. Now, that's synonymous with there is no divine being. Same word, really, divine. What? Divine what? Divine being. That's what it means. God. God, not the word G-O-D. I don't even want to get into that. That's not the right word. I don't use that word. That refers to a false demonic deity that people worship up in Sweden. Golden, and the Lombards called him Godin, and some of them called him Woden and Odin. But anyway, what the word the Bible uses is theos. And theos is like the word Dios, Dias, day. The S on the end is really the syntax is dia, or D. And so it's like the word day. It's the beginning of the word divine. Dia, dias. So it's also the word we get theater, theater, to see, to observe a play. So it's not just the day, it's not just light, it's also the word Zeus. And it's the theos is the Attic, ancient Athenian Attic Greek spelling of the Koine Greek, Zeus. So theos and Zeus is the same word. Remember, Zeus had a thunderbolt. He's the sky deity, or the air, the inner. And so he's the guy that's over the mind. And so it's not just light in the sense of flashing lights, but it's light in the sense of consciousness or mind. So this is why he's so powerful and in charge, because Zeus speaks and it's done, and all the deities have to listen. When your mind speaks, it controls all of the other things. And Zeus's wife is equal to him, but one thing she likes is for her husband to be a man. That's kind of, she likes to be led that way. She's willingly led because, you see, the body wants to be led by the will. You have to have a will, and then the will is the leader, and the emotions and the being of happy adornment, the material part of the being follows in obedience. But when the two are one, bam, they can reproduce, they can create the universe. It's a magical thing. And that's why all of the ancient ceremonies depicted the Great Wedding. So what, Dave? You don't believe in the divine being? You're talking about these impersonal forces. Well, the first two deities, our Heavenly Father and our Divine Mother, are, if they are fathers, truly, and mothers, then they came from a father and a mother. So on earth, we have these little ceremonies where we have a king and a queen, they marry, and they do these little rituals and ceremonies. We understood them in times past, like before the flood. After the flood, they started misunderstanding some of it, but we still knew a lot of this, like I said, until the apostasy in around 400 AD. There was the Pontifex Maximus and the Rex Sacrorum, which was the king and the king who had the male and the female king and the queen that reigned, which is the same story as David and Bathsheba and Adam and Eve and all the way back. There's always an Isaac and Rebecca, an Abraham and Sarah. But our mother is free. She's not bound. She's not a slave. But she chose to go with Abraham. She chose. Abraham said, listen, she can do what she wants. She's a free woman. And so the Apostle Paul says that our mother is free. But the woman or Jerusalem that is now, is Hagar, the slave woman. And she's in bondage with her children. So all the people in this world are in bondage. And nobody understands anything. And the only way you can understand anything is spiritual. It's to understand love. It's to get, there's a lot of electricity just everywhere. You don't have to go somewhere. It's in a pin of the head of a pen anywhere. You could just suck. Like I said, it comes out of the air. Hundreds of thousands of volts in the air. The ground is just a battery. It's not a battery. It's a ground. So all that electricity you're pulling out of the air is going to go into the ground and make a circuit, and you have another anoid, or the best metal you can get is a magnesium rod. Magnesium is the best. It'll 3-4 times better than aluminum. And the government knows that, and it's getting very hard to buy. They used to put them in hot water tanks, and you can still buy them or special order them, but they won't sell them because they don't want people getting them, because we're about to go into the tribulation. And if people get these magnesium anoid rods that go into hot water tanks, then you can literally make a power station where you can literally, I call it an antenna. Tesla called it an antenna, and he said you could get free energy from the infinite energy pool. They don't cost anything. There's no moving parts. There's never going to be any cost except for the first initial purchase of the copper that you're going to wind around and make certain coils up voltage, and you can use a capacitor and a diode to strengthen it, like a resistor, to get the more force, which is more material. That's why in uranium you could blow up the world, because everything's in there, but it's all slowed down. But if you get it on fire, it breaks it up and it begins to, but you don't burn uranium. You have to, it's so hard, it would take, if it's split, if the atom is split, and you have to use a substance like uranium, just like you try to burn a rock in the fire and it won't burn, you have to use wood. So there's certain forms of energy energy has taken some particular form that's either volatile, or it could be inert. It could be, if it doesn't have like if you're talking about metals and hardness and, all the way from uranium to air, the obvious thing about those things is that the hard substance is at the bottom and the airy substance is at the top, and it weighs less, there's less electrons. And that's because it's more expanded. So these little bitty forces of energy now have more pressure, and they've expanded. They become airy. It's all the same thing. You cool it down, and then it forms uranium again. Now, like I said, it's like a figure eight. Sometimes it looks like it's all backwards, because you say, well, down in the middle of the earth, it's not cold, it's very hot. Well, when the substance gets as solid as it can, then it begins to disintegrate and makes fire, and it melts, and it starts emitting and releasing that energy back into air again, or breaking down the compounds and the chemical reactions and the bonds until it releases that energy. And all you're doing is releasing the form into a higher vibration. And that's it. And so you don't generate that energy. It's already here all around us. The earth is here. The energy is here. You just have to understand how to make an antenna to receive it. And it's the same with this truth. The truth is something that you can understand. If you seek the truth, you will find it. But you have to really want it to seek it. It's a really strange thing. If you really don't want to know the truth, you just will ignore it. If you don't allow yourself to see the light, you'll be blind. And they are willingly ignorant, the Bible says. Why? Because there's something that has blinded their mind, the deity of this world, the lower ego. Lust has blinded their mind. So these powerful men, the only thing they have going for them is that they know a secret. They've turned the occult, which is the truth. It's not an occult. It's not a religion. The Bible doesn't talk about religion. But Jesus offered us a kingdom, not a religion. The kingdom of Uranus, that is his father. It's the divine kingdom that's within you. And one of love, not of laws. So the occult just means the hidden, the knowledge, the mysteries that Paul was so keen on sharing with us. He talked about these great mysteries and how they were symbolized by marriage and the man and the woman and the bride, and so they don't know about love. They do know there's a great deal of power. They don't know what this power is. They've only experienced a little fraction of it. What? You can make if you wrap coils of wire around, increases the voltage, and if you keep doing it enough, you can make a motor that's so powerful, it creates hundreds of thousands of volts. And what that does is it kind of makes a like a force field, okay, around whatever object it's going to be the center of that motor, that wrappings, all those little windings. That's going to be making a vibration by increasing that power. So you're drawing it out through that antenna that you're making with the copper wire, around and around and around. It's an antenna. You're pulling it. You're pulling it right out. Just like when you used to try and get television and you used an antenna. And if you've ever remembered, the television antenna was a straight pole, straight up, a metal rod with a point, and then it would have a cross, a short cross. And then there would be another one below it would be a little bit longer, and then a third one would be a little bit longer. Why? Because each arm or each cross arm had to mimic the wavelength of that radio wave, and you had to cut it at a certain inches to make it a perfect. It had to be designed perfectly to catch that vibration in its full strength. Now, you weren't trying to capture all of that power, all the infinity. You were just taking one wavelength out of the air. And now other wavelengths, you might have had a very small antenna, would work. Other ones could be, other wavelengths could be very, much different. You could use different dissimilar metals. You could use vibrations like singing. Just when you're happy, when your mind is thinking in pure thoughts without negative anxiety, without lust, your mind is literally outside of the body. You're rarefying and purifying your body. You're transforming your body. But most humans never get to stay in that condition very long. So these evil people, and we're getting about 53 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and probably bring this to a conclusion. What I'm trying to tell you guys today is that these individuals are making UFOs and claiming that they don't know what they are. I've seen them. I've seen so I know personally, and it's just my testimony. You don't have to believe me if you don't want to. There are lots of people that would probably say that, official people, if you're one of those, you won't believe, any of us conspirators here on YouTube. Well, you might want to just check your television lately. They've got full disclosure. But what they're saying is that most of these are UFOs and they don't know where they come from. That's not true. So there's a lot of disinformation. So in this idea where the media comes on and tells us things, it's only when they are disclosing it for a purpose. And usually it's to twist the truth or to control the narrative. So they hire people like from the CIA to infiltrate the media programs. And so Tucker Carlson is a disclosure agent from the CIA. His father was a big CIA agent with PBS and all of this. It's mind-altering, mind control, ultra, whatever they call it. And it's been going on a long time. They use the media. And they get you to like them. I believe that most of these guys that you see, like... now, people like Gutfield is just one of their high-up sort of plants. He's a corporate plant. But some of the others that are more like CIA mind-controlled plants are like Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity and individuals like that. They're not journalists. They're agents. And they can never be fired. Sometimes they have people that something gets out and they just be better for the image, and they give them a big check and tell them to go bye-bye and go on vacation. But for the most part, there are certain individuals that don't make those mistakes because they're taken to a highly secret locations and they go to school for years, such as DeSantis, who was in Yale University and was in one of the highest secret societies and chosen. You watch, DeSantis will probably, he's a plant to turn everybody's vote to someone. You notice that Robert F. Kennedy is also, for a while I was listening to him and he was talking like, he didn't like the PANDMIC. He was against the MASK. And I was like, yeah, somebody's saying something. I'm like, wait a minute, isn't he a Kennedy? But wait a minute, yeah, his brother, his dad and his uncle were murdered as martyrs, or was it just a big, show? I think it was somebody may have died, but it could also have just been fake, like Epstein. He's on the island over there drinking margarita. I don't know. Maybe sometimes they do have to murder people, and then they just make them martyrs. But the truth is that Kennedy was a rich, wealthy man. And if he did turn on him, that might be why they killed him. Or he may have just been playing a game. But, part of the, I believe Reagan was just, made a hero who's an actor. I believe all these people were in on it. But, and nobody that gets that high up is not in on it. If Robert F. Kennedy had been doing anything independent, apart from what they want, he'd have been gone. So, why would they run 3 or 4 people that maybe would get some attention? Maybe they want, because I noticed that RFK Jr. seems good to conservatives and people who believe in the Lord. He didn't talk about Jesus, right? He didn't talk about deity. I don't think he believes in deity. I don't think he's any different. He says he's a liberal. The only thing we know about him is he was against the mandate. Well, yeah, now all these guys like Ben Shapiro or whatever coming out, oh yeah, I was always against all that. We're the good guys. Well, they're all brothers. They play different parts. Adam Schiff will go bow out peacefully. He'll go down. Once they take over with this new law and order and the Nasara, and Abrahamic covenant and the Abrahamic or the Noahide laws and stuff that they're about to, impose upon the world, where you're literally not going to be allowed to worship Jesus and our Mother Mary and the Virgin and the Trinity. You must worship this being that Jesus called the adversary, and you must receive the mark upon your hand, your forehead, which is the law of Moses. Read it in Deuteronomy and Exodus. They put it. To this day they write it on their hand and their forehead. The law of Moses. It's compliance. So they're working for somebody. It's not nobody's. Ain't no spoiled brat, social, corporate billionaire running the world. He's a billionaire because he was seduced into giving up his soul. It's the devil that's running everything. And they're trying to build these ships. And they think that maybe these ships are so powerful. And so they are so technologically advanced. They're going to try to have a war with Jesus. There's going to be a war in heaven. Michael and his angels will battle with the devil and his angels. But there will be no more place found in heaven for them. And they will be cast down. And that will be the beginning of the Great Tribulation. And when you see them come down, you will see the stars of heaven fall. Literally. It will be an event. Remember when they saw the star? Well, it was the birth of Jesus. Well, yeah, we're going to witness some big things. And the Great Tribulation will begin. And we will be taken into the booths. The 7 days of the Feast of Tabernacles will be protected. And he's going to smoke them. All of them. Now, by the time he does that, there's only going to be, like I said, about 144,000 of these top evil people left on the earth, which is the son of destruction. And it doesn't ever say they're going to go to hell forever and ever and ever and ever. It says for the ages. We don't know what's going to happen to them, but we do know that the rest of mankind, a great multitude which no man can number, will eventually, whether they go through the tribulation and wash their robes in the blood of the Lamb, because they didn't have a valiant testimony and they had to go all the way to martyrdom. But either them and the 144,000 will remain until he comes. We're all going to be standing around getting our white robes. We're going to have immortality. But only the 144,000 get the crowns. Which means the top chakra is open and we are more aware. And we will have more, we'll master the song on the 10-string harp. We'll be able to harmonize this physical world. The great multitude will be immortal, but they will not have all power. They will not have dominion. What does it mean that we shall reign? That word comes from Genesis chapter 1. And it says, have dominion over the earth, the fish of the sea, and the animals. So the dominion that we will have is that we'll be able to talk to the animals, and we'll love them. And we'll bring it, and we'll bring that song, and we'll play on the hull of the cobra, and we'll do no harm in all of his holy mountain. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and go, guys. Sorry I was so late getting this up. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one.